Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and today it is my 2-year anniversary. Thank you all so much for getting me to this point. Almost 11,000 subscribers in 2 years. Bigger than I ever thought I'd ever get. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you all for it. And to pay you all back, I decided to do my review from 2014. The votes are in, have all been tallied from the comments, and by a landslide we have our winner, Cilvia Demo by Isaiah Rashad. You know, I have no idea why I didn't cover this back in 2014. Well, okay, I've got some idea. This record dropped in late January of 2014, and I'll admit that I was still very much in some of the learning curve of album reviews around that time, especially when it came to underground hip-hop. And part of it really was a cheap justification on my part. I rarely, if ever, cover EPs, and Isaiah Rashad had said that Cilvia Demo was technically an EP, even despite being longer than some full hip-hop albums that dropped this year, like I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside by Earl Sweatshirt. But upon reflection, it's one of those records I probably should have just covered regardless. Critics following hip-hop are always wise to keep a keen eye on Top Dog Entertainment anyways. And Isaiah Rashad was one of the first recruits beyond the original 4 rappers of Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, Ab-Soul, and J-Rock. 2 who dropped solid albums in 2014, 1 who dropped a near classic this year, and 1 has been keeping us waiting an exasperatingly long time for new material. Seriously, J-Rock, drop the album already. But back to Isaiah Rashad, a southern MC who had a knack for balancing more conscious bars with slightly more hedonistic material. At first glimpse, it's almost a little bit surprising when you think about it that Isaiah Rashad didn't get a hell of a lot bigger in the mainstream given some of his style and sound and subject matter. And while fellow new arrival SZA generally underwhelmed me with her debut album Z, I had some solid hope going into Cilvia Demo. The reception had been generally positive, if not critically acclaimed across the board, earning its fair share of accolades and probably only slipping off some critics' list due to being released in January and just being forgotten about, which can happen when you've got a record with a more subdued vibe like this. So I definitely took the time to dig deep into Cilvia Demo. Was it worth all of your requests? Well, yeah, definitely, because Cilvia Demo is a damn solid, impressively lyrical album that really did hit me surprisingly hard the more I listened through it. It's really a grower. It's something of a sleeper hit here. It's one of those albums that does feel a little bit monochromatic when it comes to some of its production and instrumentation, lacking a lot of the variety and punch to make some specific songs stand out, even beyond their very understated presentation. But really, when the lyrics of this album are so well done, I find it hard to get all that fussed about it, because this record, it's great. Definitely recommend it. Before I dig really deep into the lyrical and thematic meat of this album, as I definitely want to, let's talk about Isaiah Rashad himself. And the first word that immediately springs to mind here is versatile. While he does force a couple hard rhymes, he's got a few sloppier bars than I can really excuse across this album, I can't deny that his tactics for inflection and flow is pretty impressive, spanning across his label mates Kendrick Lamar and Schoolboy Q to Outkast or even Tupac, the latter especially on R.I.P. Kevin Miller. Now, I'm always a little bit hesitant about rappers who so plainly imitate the flows of other rappers, as it doesn't always speak to him building a unique sound and flow himself, but he brings enough together with good content, so I'm inclined to give him a bit of a pass here. On top of that, the guest hooks he gets from SZA and Jane Doe are actually pretty solid in matching some of the atmosphere, and the guest verses from Schoolboy Q, J-Rock, and Michael Da Vinci are all solid too. They really fit well together. But really, this is all Isaiah Rashad's show, and he does do a fair bit to distinguish himself as a unique personality outside of the rest of the TDE clique, which is why it's a bit of a shame that his production doesn't often really rise to stand out and match him. He went on record saying that he was aiming to create more of a smooth vibe with this album, and I can definitely buy that. But his choice of dusty, faded pianos, deep bass kicks, and sparse rattling percussion does start to run a bit together the more you listen to this album. It lends it a feeling of dour heaviness, and while there are moments that do stand out, the mellow West Coast vibe of the title track, the West Jungle vibe of Ronnie Drake, the scratchy edges of soliloquy that actually comes back and picks up some organs on Heavenly Father, the bells on Modest, or the pan flute on the remix I Shot You Down. But beyond those, it does make the record feel a little bit leaden and lacking in some momentum, bit of a long listen. Now, for the most part, I'm fine with that. The production is so good and textured that I can easily overlook much of these problems, with only West Savannah feeling a little bit overmixed in its very obvious Outkast tribute. But as I said, it does mean the record can feel a little bit long, even despite running under an hour. It is a pretty heavy listen. You gotta be in the right mood for it. But the other factor of that is the wordplay and the themes. And on some level, I think Isaiah Rashad might have gone for a little bit too much here, as you would expect on a debut, as this record tries to straddle a certain drugged out, chill hedonism and real social commentary. I'm not always sure it strikes a very solid balance. It's easily moments where the tracks focus on Isaiah Rashad's quest for some form of nebulous clarity, where this album starts to get the most focus and punch, starting early with the lament at the bad behaviors his absent father taught him on Hereditary, a figure with whom the estrangement comes up very frequently. And really, that lack of a father figure, a guiding figure, is probably the biggest underlying theme and arc of this album, as Isaiah Rashad doesn't really really shy away from questioning the larger message that he himself takes from it, and whether or not he should be considered a role model in the mainstream, or whether or not it's just inevitable due to his fame and success as a rapper that he'll be considered a role model. He's more than aware of the parallel between his own absent father and overload of responsibilities because of it, and the oppressive neglect in the black community at large who might suffer under their own absent father figures, or at least absent authority figures, and the parallel of their reactions through either violence, drugs, hedonism, or the underlying depression that lies at the core is very well emphasized. Take us all at the title track, where he's hoping that he and his girl can just stay cool and not draw undue attention, could start trouble from that system, and yet he sees the girl's young toddler son, who looks at him as a father figure, a role model, a position he struggles with repeatedly on this record whether or not he deserves it or is even apt for it. It speaks to an underlying and very striking humility of Cilvia demo in songs like Ronnie Drake, where he appropriates a line of Lil Wayne that previously ripped on less successful conscious rappers and reappropriates it for just plain populism, speaking instead as a comrade just trying to survive and spread compassion for the community they're all trying to get by. Similar themes come through in Menthol and Soliloquy and Banana, where he castigates a broken system that will judge him unfairly and often arbitrarily, where all he's trying to do is find some peace of mind that he provides for his family. And songs like Heavenly Father find it all the more difficult in cutting to that inner peace, as he cuts to the real depression at its core, trying to rise above the suicidal thoughts and finding it all the more difficult to do so. But the song that perplexed me and the one that I probably liked most is Tranquility, mostly because it acknowledges how society might lionize a leader and demonize those who bring them down, but there is a place for both of them, especially in the latter case where the leader has grown unjust. And in the biggest twist, Isaiah Rashad often finds himself treating girls with a care and respect much like their fathers, becoming the sort of leader that might as well be targeted. There is a place for both leaders and those who would strike them down, those assassins. And oddly, even though I like songs like Shot You Down, R.I.P. Kevin Miller, or Modest, or the well-executed Starface tribute, Brad Jordan, they really don't fit all that well on the record for me, even though I really like them. They do add a certain lighter balance against some of the much heavier themes, but I argue that Isaiah Rashad's approach to capturing some more serious subject matter already has some of that lighter touch, as he touches on some of that little bit of a hedonistic or just getting up on drugs, getting a little bit high, having that balance. And thus, those songs, they do feel a little bit less essential, let's just say that. But as a whole, I'm going to repeat what so many other critics have already said about Cilvia demo by Isaiah Rashad. It's excellent. For some ungodly reason, if you haven't heard this debut, you really should check it out. It's thought-provoking, well-presented, and while I said the production can feel a little bit similar from song to song, and Isaiah Rashad could have refined his bars a little bit more, his subject matter more than easily makes it up for me. For me, a light 8 out of 10, definitely a recommendation. Looking forward to hearing more from you, Isaiah Rashad. Just call it a full album next time so I don't make the mistake of actually missing it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Once again, guys, thank you all for getting to me at this point. 2 years, almost 11,000 subscribers. It's huge for me. I really do appreciate it. But if there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.